Hello everyone. I thought what I'd do is swatch out these new inks that I've got. The only one I'm familiar with is the Verdigris ink from London Pigment. I haven't used other inks before, and the inks from Bohemian Rhapsody are completely new to me. So this is all going to be, hopefully, a little experiments in the wonder of colour. So what I'll do is start off with the London Pigment inks. So I've made a swatch card here and written down the names of the inks. So if you were particularly interested in any of them, you can pause the video and have a kind of look at each ink with its name. Now the Verdigris ink, this is really clear and very translucent, very delicate, and you'll see when I put the first brush of this down that you can hardly see it. It just kind of disappears into the background. You can keep adding colour or adding more ink to deepen the colour, and it just creates such a delicate turquoise. I can just about see that coming through on the card. I'm not sure you can see it on the camera. If I just bring that up a little bit closer, you can see it kind of just looks like a watermark, but it will deepen. So that's why I'm starting this with this one, because it needs a little bit of time to reveal its true beauty. And I have used Verdigris on some of my other paintings. I bought some Verdigris ink from London Pigment, it's probably over a year ago, and I'm thinking of using it as a background wash for my next painting. So it was when I went back onto Lucy's website that I was reminded of all the other inks that she makes, and so that's why I bought some. So you can see it coming through now. I think it's so beautiful. So I'll leave that one to dry and have a look at these other inks that I got from London Pigment. So these come in quite large bottles. I can't remember if they're 30 or 50 ml actually. I think they're 30. And this one, they come with a kind of little cork stopper in the wax there. So this is called Medieval Purple. I've already opened the wax so that you didn't have to spend time waiting on the video for me to cut through the wax. This is another really delicate shade. It's kind of reddish as you put it down. I'm wondering if the colour will deepen as it dries like the Verdigris does. That's very subtle. Oh, I can see now it's got like a deepening. I can see kind of more purple shade coming through the red. Oh, that's really pretty. Really pretty. Okay, so that's Medieval Purple. Next one is Slowberry. So it's quite a kind of muddy brown colour through the bottle. I didn't actually order this one. She included it with my order as an apology for being late in posting this to me. I have to say it was only a couple of days. I was really surprised that she apologised. It was over Easter, so I wasn't expecting it to arrive immediately because of our Easter holidays here in the UK. But she kindly included this bottle as an apology for what she thought was a late shipping. Well, this is an interesting colour. So again, it's much lighter than it looks in the bottle. It looks quite opaque. I mean, it does look like mud in the bottle. And I'm not really into earth colours, but this is again quite delicate. It's quite pretty. Gosh, that purple has really deepened from the kind of reddish tone it had when I put it down. Oh, this slowberry one is kind of peachy, I suppose. And just look at that purple. And you can see the slowberry. This is why I wanted to have a look at inks, because they're so subtle by comparison to some of the watercolours. So this is walnut ink, and I know a lot of geometers use walnut ink with their ruling pens to outline the pattern, which is what I've got in mind when I bought this. I'm not particularly practiced with a ruling pen, but we can give it a go. Let's just see what the walnut ink looks like just in terms of a mass tone. I have used walnut ink in the past, so I know that it is this kind of true brown, I suppose, is what you would call it. Yeah. So much darker than that slowberry. I really like the slowberry actually, the colour that's dried. It is a kind of peachy colour rather than the mid-brown that it looks like. See the contrast next to the walnut there. I think that medieval purple is amazing. I really like it. And you can also see how that verdigris has deepened. Now I've just left it to dry. And what I did when I made the order from Bohemian Raspberry Art is purchase her verdigris as well. So she's called it Mermaid Verdigris. Now this came in a kind of little weeny bottle. I don't know if this is 5 or 10 ml. I don't know if it says on the bottle. No, it doesn't. But obviously it's a lot less than in the London pigment bottles, which is fine, because I think ink kind of goes a long way depending on what you're using it for, obviously. But it was an opportunity to kind of try out the inks and try out the colours. Now, this bottle looks like it's blue glass, but because it's Mermaid Verdigris, I wasn't sure if she had mixed the verdigris with something else. Oh, there we go. Oh no, it's well, it looks like copper, and oh yes, I can smell it. So verdigris often smells of vinegar. And this bottle has come with a little stopper. So it's immediately darker as I place this on the paper than it was with the London pigment. So it's looking a little bit more green. It looks, it actually reminds me of malachite, handmade paint from malachite. So it's a slight, yeah, I think it's more green than the London pigment. We'll see how that dries, that'll be interesting. So the other one I've got here is Iron Gall and Indigo. There's another one of these teeny tiny bottles with a stopper and a dropper. Oops. So what have we got here? Because it's Iron Gall, I'm expecting this to be quite black. But it's got indigo with it. Oh yes, I can see that now. I can see the blue. Oh, look at that. Real kind of blue, black mix. Reminds me of the Daniel Smith colour, Lunar Blue, which I used on one of my paintings last year, where I applied a lot of gold leaf to a big rosette pattern. It also reminds me of the blue-black ink that we used to use at school. And we had to write with fountain pen. I'm going back to the 1970s. That's really brought back some memories. So the next one I've got from Bohemian Raspberry Art is Chinese Privet in another one of these dinky little bottles. And I've no idea what Chinese Privet might be like as a colour. It looks quite black. Her Etsy shop does have photos of the inks and describes the colour, but I can't remember what it said. This looks like a kind of deep forest green. Very pretty. I was clearly in a blue and green mood when I picked these. And the paper I'm using is a Bockingford watercolour paper, 300 grams and cold pressed. Again, it's a sample. I think it was off Jackson's Art website that I purchased a sample of different Bockingford papers, and it just seemed to be the right size for doing some swatching this afternoon. This one is Chestnut Catkin. So it's another small bottle. It's different to the other bottles. The first three were part of a set, a kind of boxed set that I ordered that came with a teeny tiny watercolour journal, and a stopper I think came with it, and I also got the glass pen as well. It's absolutely beautiful. I'm not sure how practical it is, to be honest, but I just thought it was very pretty. That was sold separately to the set, and it was only £5. I've seen them on sale elsewhere for 20, so I thought it was an absolute bargain, and I was willing to purchase one, even if it ends up purely being an object rather than something I could actually use. So chestnut catkin. Oh gosh, there's quite a strong scent to that. It's quite pleasant. You know, given these are botanical inks, then I can understand that some of them actually do hold a scent. Now I thought chestnut catkin would be a kind of yellow gold colour, given the colour of catkins, but it looks more like a kind of charcoal grey. It seems kind of a bit oily, a bit like the iron gall and indigo one, that felt a bit oily, and the other ones have felt much more watery. That's interesting. Not the colour I was expecting to be at all, but a very delicate charcoal. And finally, this bottle's a little bit larger, but again I bought this separate. This is Tamil Indigo. You do need to shake them because sometimes there's a kind of sediment that settles in a botanical ink. Make sure so give them a shake to make sure the pigment mixes. So Tamil Indigo, I'm expecting this to be a true kind of indigo deep blue, so let's see. Yeah, that kind of midnight blue. I absolutely love indigo. Yeah, gorgeous. Sorry if you can hear the siren in the background. It's late afternoon here in Eastbourne, and we've had a busy day out on the seafront. They've had an old classic cars exhibition with a bit of a fairground. So it's been a lovely sunny day and lots of people out and about. Very busy. Feels like the world is slowly returning to normal after those 2 years of lockdowns. And we've got a long weekend here. We have our May Day bank holiday on Monday, so we've got lots of people who take advantage of that for a long weekend. A holiday atmosphere. So there we go. You can see the difference between these two verdigris. I hope that's showing up on the camera. That is far more turquoise, and that's more green. And that green really does remind me of a malachite. And that purple that looked quite reddish when I first put the ink on the paper has dried to a kind of violet, I suppose, a violet grey. It's very pretty. And the slowberry, that didn't look particularly attractive as a colour in the bottle, looks much, much better on the paper. I would happily use that in a piece of work. And the walnut ink. So you can see they all kind of fade into these very delicate wash kind of colours. Down here with the Bohemian Raspberry Arts, there's a bit more kind of strength to these colours, which is unsurprising, particularly with the iron gall mixed with the indigo. You can see how it's kind of got like some spotting. That's what I mean. It felt a bit heavier and more viscous than say this. I think the Chinese privet is a very pretty colour, real kind of forest green. Chestnut catkin, which I can't detect any kind of yellow green in there. But again, laying down the colour, I mean, my brush probably needs to be a bit bigger, but you can see how it's not spreading in the way, say, these have. Again, it seems a bit more viscous. And the indigo, Tamil indigo. So I'm going to work with 2 or 3 of these in my next painting. It'll be really interesting to see how they appear.